How much do you think we're going to see the gap close between Indigenous and non-Indigenous health before your career's out?
How far's my career?
You tell me.
Welcome to A Window on SAMRI, where we take you inside South Australia's independent not-for-profit health and medical research institute. Each episode, we get to know the people driving our life-changing research, getting into what motivates them personally and how their work is delivering a brighter, healthier future for all.
Eugene, tell us a bit about growing up in the north.
I was about 10 years old. I grew up as a child out in the north early on, and then my father was a police officer for 20 years. Served down the country, Millicent, down the southeast for probably 6 years, and then we come back into Para Hills, and from there, 87, so probably about 10 years old, and did all my schooling at Para Hills. Played footy in Para Hills. Went to Salisbury's High School, and then after that, we bought a house. Mum and Dad purchased a house out at Malala, which is still in the north, funnily enough. But it was for me, it was great. I had a good bunch of mates, played footy, schooling with, loved school, loved high school. Everything was pretty rosy for me and my family. I've got, a younger brother and sister. So in the household I'm certainly not going to complain, put it that way. It was, growing up, certainly having both mum who was a very strong woman, but also having a father that was in the police force for 20 years. He ruled the family with a fist, so to speak. Not that he just basically taught you right from wrong, which is good, and certainly respected that, and hopefully have grown up.
So you behaved yourself?
Oh, absolutely. There was no going out, on Friday nights with your mates or hanging out at parties or whatever.
You didn't get into any trouble? Is that what you're saying?
None whatsoever. I probably did a couple of times, but I certainly got told for it, and I learnt pretty quick that it wasn't tolerated. So, and I guess for me, I certainly had aspirations and dreams to do a lot of things, around sport, around football. So he kept me on the straight and narrow, and I think it was a good two-way street where I knew exactly what the expectations were within a household and knew right from wrong, and we just had open conversations around the household, and I was quite happy to do what I did, and the way I grew up, I was happy with it.
Were there many Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people living out there at that time?
Around the Para Hills area, no. Certainly around Salisbury, Elizabeth, there was, an abundance of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders that live out there. I went to school with three, and I can count them, 3 Aboriginal students at Salisbury East. And then at Para Hills, I went, there was one apart from myself, and that person was in junior primary. So by the time they got up into primary, I was well and truly into high school. And I grew up playing at Para Hills with all non-Indigenous kids.
What was that like in footy and at school?
I liked it as much as I, would like to play with a brother, so to speak. Back then, you didn't see colour; you just seen people. And for me, that was, I respected you. You were my mate, and I was your mate, and we got along well at school, high school, and even on the footy field. There was no issues. We probably had a couple later on down the track, but as racism sort of reared its ugly head.
But you didn't have that so much as a kid?
2 or 3 times that has probably happened. Probably as I got to my late teens, it sort of come out a little bit. But apart from that, it was, I guess, business as usual. I would wake up looking forward to go to school. I would, it was never I'm going to get bullied or I'm going to get, racially vilified. And I guess from my end, I had a lot of mates that would actually stick up for me at school. If something did happen, which, very rarely it did, but, it happened once, and my non-Indigenous school friends actually put a stop to it straight away, as if to say, I've got your back, we're your mates. And it was good and I appreciated it, but you don't really understand the full depth of it until you're a bit older to go, okay, I wonder what would happen now if it did happen in a schoolyard, whether someone would actually have your back.
But you very much felt like you belonged to that community. What sort of things did you see people struggle with in the north when you were growing up?
Money was an issue. You could tell, once again, we're living out there. We lived pretty comfortably as far as I can recall. It was, it was a pretty good, lifestyle. You could always do with an extra pair of Nikes or whatever, but I'm happy with the shoes I got, and it was, do you really need them? It's like, oh, not really. It's just for show, really. But, in terms of financial security, there was that.
What about health-wise?
You didn't really take much notice, for me growing up, in primary school, high school, until you got that little bit older and you started to realise what gaps there are in that health service. And given obviously the work that I do now, you certainly notice, and it's been going for a long time. And given that I've lived down the north for a long time, you speak to, I've got a lot of family that live out there, a lot of friends, and they've been talking the same thing over and over again. And it's not just for months, it's for years.
What sort of gaps do you see?
Unemployment, housing, just the gaps in being able to get to a service, being able to see a service provider to get your needs met. And there's a wide range, and it depends on, I guess, who you speak to. And once again, it's if you speak to a male as opposed to a female, they'll give you different arguments around what the gaps are. But generally, we've found through our conversations that we've had, housing's a big gap, unemployment's a big gap, financial security, a lot of mental health has certainly come into it, drugs and alcohol. So there's some big gaps out there, and hopefully with the project that we're doing, we can try and close that by engaging with a lot of service providers and letting them know that what we've found might be able to assist them in their workforce moving forward.
What made you decide to pursue the work that you do now?
A lot of things. I've been involved, when we're looking at social determinants of Indigenous health, it's, obviously the housing, the health, the sporting aspects. So I've been involved with, all of that, on a private and a professional level, working with housing and playing sport and understanding the health benefits around that. I guess I just wanted to try and make a difference. And given that I work in the north, or live in the north and obviously work, I'm involved with football coaching out in the north. So everything sort of aligns nicely for me to try and make a difference, helping out community and service providers. But I just like the opportunity to just try and make that difference. And, if I can make that difference with one family, 5 families, one service provider, 5 service providers, then hopefully we can make those little small inroads. And we understand that it's not going to happen overnight, and it might take 4, 5, 10 years. But if we've got the right people around the place in service provider land that can understand the dynamics and the gaps within Aboriginal health equity, we're going all right. But I guess for people that work in the space, they want stuff to happen yesterday. But if we can certainly make some inroads and have good people around the table making decisions and making good decisions and the right decisions, I think being out in the north is certainly going to be a good place to live and grow up.
What are some of the things that your team's focusing on specifically at the moment?
Our project is a 5-year project. The project is called Tangawil Taberku Kawandilla. It is a Kaurna meaning for strong community in the north. We've already done our yarning circles with community and service providers. At the moment, we are looking at the data set in terms of the gaps in the services, the challenges, what's working well, success stories, the future ways of working and the current ways of working, services that should be delivered, and then also partnerships between the services in terms of handovers, referrals.
Take us through how a yarning circle works.
It's quite good, actually. So we'll speak to service providers or community members, make that call, get them in, meet them at a community club or whatever's best for them. It's already recorded, so it's a confidential yarn. So we obviously get documentation from them to sign off to say that it's going to be confidential. we'll ask a series of questions in 2 stages. So it's around, stage 1 is around the gaps and challenges, what's working well, success stories, as I said. I think it's about a 9-question stage 1, and then stage 2 is around that partnerships, which we only ask that for the service providers. Yarns can take 40 minutes or 3 hours, depending on how much they want to talk about, how much they want to get off their chest. And, and I reckon the minimum that we've spent is probably 70 minutes with a yarn. Some of them taken 2.5 hours because they just want to talk and get everything off their chest, which is great for us, to get a lot of rich data.
So what sort of responses do you get from people throughout the yarn and circle process in terms of what sort of things do they reveal and what do they get out of being a part of this?
So at the very start, we'll talk about our project, and some of the answers that we get back is, "Oh, not this again. We've already been down this track and spoken about these things 8 years ago. Nothing has happened, as you can see." So we have to try and put their mind at ease to say, we're a 5-year project. This is where we're going. This is what we want to do, and this is how we want to go about it. They open up. Awesome. It's really good. And we sit there, myself and my co-worker, we'll sit there and just go, "Man, this is gold." Like all the information that we're getting. We might just flick them a teaser and tell us more about that. And then they just dig deeper and just tell us a lot more. So we analyse it through an in vivo process. It's a software package on the computer. So anything they talk about, whether they're talking about gaps in services, housing, mental health, drug and alcohol, domestic violence, those we will just drag and drop into that. So then once we collate all the data, we can just go back into housing and just talk about whether that's a service delivery, whether that's a gap in housing or whatever situation.
So the people that you're involving in these circles are speaking to a really diverse range of issues, and you can get a whole lot out of one person by them giving their perspective on everything that affects that whole picture. What's it like for you to engage with community members on that sort of intimate level?
Yeah, I like it. Absolutely, I do. Once again, I live out there currently and coach footy out there, so I see people, away from the yarning circle. Might see them once or twice a week, just at the shops or wherever. So you just have a quick yarn, but they've, like I said, they've got really good data that they feed us, and I love being able to work with our community because once again, it's the information they give us. We don't know everything. The community live out there as much as I do, but they're probably dealing with other issues that you or someone else doesn't necessarily have. We're dealing with talking to without sort of delving too much, but we're dealing with people that got overcrowding issues. We're dealing with people that are single parents that have got kids in and out of primary school that struggle to actually get to school. So their needs, as much as they might not be a significant thing for someone else, might be massive for them. So once again, you take each situation as it comes and deal with that accordingly. And
you're in a bit of a unique situation in that you actually know the people that you're striving all the time to help. So that adds a bit of an extra layer of meaning to it, I imagine.
Absolutely, it does. And, we don't directly help as such, but I guess after a yarning circle, if there's something that's pressing for them, we can certainly guide them in the right direction around, we've potentially spoken to a service provider that might be able to get you in. So I guess for us, and having that ability to sort of look right across the north and to be able to be involved with a couple of working groups and being on some panels, I think it helps because I've had the ability to chat to a wide range of people from different
and there's that trust there as well.
Absolutely. Trust is first and foremost. And once again, if you're doing the right things by them, they'll certainly come back because I know the people that I'm talking to. It makes it easier. So there's that trust straight off the bat, whereas I reckon if there wasn't, they'd be hesitant to actually come in and have a chat.
And probably not open up to that extent.
That's right.
And this is all with a view to influencing policy at the end of the day, because that's how we see those changes actually translate? What's challenging about having to get policymakers to buy into it or prioritise it?
Probably just trying to get them to, and we don't have that, because we've only been going for a short time. I mean, 2 years. In the whole scheme of things, it's relatively short. But when we are analysing the data, we've got that rich data, and the evidence, we hope that can be translated real quick. We've had a couple of service providers or a couple of, key stakeholders actually talk to us around some of the work that we've done and said, what have you found here? Are you able to come and present some of your findings already? So with that, we've actually got some, key policymakers that are jumping on board with the work that we're doing to say, have you done this? Have you done that? Yes, we have. Okay, can you do a presentation? Which is...
So that's good that they're asking for it. So it's like they're waiting for the evidence to be there so they can make moves on it rather than them having to be convinced necessarily, which I suppose is what you definitely prefer.
Or waiting until the end of the 5-year project and then saying, oh, what can we do? Like the evidence and the data that we've got now has actually been translated. So, around, a particular topic, they'll pick our brains, and they've spoken to us probably 3 weeks ago around it. Have you got any data around this particular data set? Yes, we have. Okay, can you come and present? So we've gone and presented, and it's actually opened their eyes to say, okay, it's a need. And from their end, they've actually been talking about it as well to say, okay, there's a need. All of a sudden, we've jumped on and said, this is what we've found. And they're like, okay, no worries. Well, everything's sort of aligning and matching up, so we may have to do something real quick, which is good.
That's powerful stuff, because you're not only connecting with the community, but also with the policymakers as well. And I imagine it needs to be that team effort for stuff to actually happen, because it's not easy to get these things over the line and actually make lasting change.
One of the working groups that I'm involved with out in the north is a Northern Nungas network, which has been, it's sort of just come up off the back of our work that we initially did. Our Aboriginal governance panel members, one of them in particular, went, okay, there's a need for this, because, around our stage 2 yarns, it's around partnerships in the north. So how service providers within the north actually talk to each other, whether they hand over warm referrals, cold calls. The Northern Nungas network is to get all service providers in the one room so they know who's who out in the north. So then when it becomes time for, a warm referral, warm handover, people have got contacts and go, okay, well, I know someone from housing. I might be able to just get someone in, just have a quick chat. And most of the people within Northern Nungas network are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. So they understand.
So it's building that real network of trust so people aren't just flying blind.
Absolutely. And it's been going for over a year now, and it's coming along well, and it's only going to get stronger with the work that we're doing. So once again, it's helping service providers out in the north, helping their own organisations, but also helping the community mob by getting stuff happening. So
what would you say is special about your team?
They're amazing. My team is, it was initially 3, but it's certainly it's gone to 6. Once again, all females. I'm the only male within the group. But the support that I get is first class, led well by my manager, Tash Howard. She's unbelievable in the work she does. She's a very switched on operator. But in terms of all the other workers, everyone's got their own key strengths which they bring to the table, and to be able to sort of pick their brains with some certain stuff that they do, it's amazing. And I work pretty closely with one of them, Anna. Once again, we're whether we're working from home or in the office, it's the work and the way she puts it across and the way she talks about research and the findings, it's first class. And my team is amazing. I can't fault them at all. They're absolutely amazing workers, and certainly appreciate the work that they put into me.
It's a solid wrap. I'm sure they'll be happy with that.
You got to give it. What do they say?
Credit where credit's due.
Absolutely, and they certainly do deserve it.
What role do you think SAMRI's playing in Aboriginal health translation overall? What sort of impact is the Institute having in this area?
Massive impact. I knew SAMRI before I obviously come and worked here 2 years ago. Certainly knew there was a Wadley-Paringa theme attached to it. Didn't know too much about it. Then once you get in there, you understand the work that they're doing. You know, there's a wide range of teams on level 4 that are doing magnificent work around diabetes, eye health, heart health, language. It's the combination of having Aboriginal researchers, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander researchers, plus non-Indigenous researchers. It's that good blend, and I think the work that they're doing out there is amazing. And just having conversation around one of the projects today, it was they seem to be going from strength to strength, which is really good. So I think the work that we do certainly doesn't go unnoticed. It's out in the community, and they're trying to get the best results for community right across South Australia, but more broadly, and trying to push their research out to Australia wide.
How much do you think we're going to see the gap close between Indigenous and non-Indigenous health before your career's out?
How far's my career?
You tell me.
I'd love to see, it close pretty significantly. If we can get it to a point where it's, you keep closing the gap every year, so to speak, and get the service providers and the policymakers to get a lot of things happening in terms of a percentage overall. I'd love to be able to, when I retire, and I don't know how long that's going to be, but, let's just say 20 years, I would love to see it to a point where we're all on the same page. We can just walk in to a service provider, whether it's housing, health, whatever, and needs are met straight away. Easy for an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person just to walk into a medical centre, get their needs met, get their prescriptions out the door.
Well said. There's a lot of work to be done to get to that point.
Absolutely. And once again, we just need to keep, have the right people within the right positions, having the key people high up the chain, certainly pushing for that to happen, and then just community advocating and pushing to get their needs met all the time, and keep pushing. As I say, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease, and if you keep sort of pushing and getting stuff happening, there's no reason why, like I said, I said 20, but if we get something happening drastically within 5-10 years, then it's a change. And I can't see myself shifting out of the north, so when I retire, I would love to be able to have something that I've put a bit of an imprint on to say, that was from our project that we done, and it's still ringing true. So it'll be a success.
Beautiful, mate. And outside of work, you're a die-hard footy fan, but you don't actually barrack for any one team. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Why not? You just can't commit?
I don't know. I've Hawthorn, I've barracked, and this is how old I am. I used to barrack for Fitzroy.
Yeah, it's before my time, mate. Sorry.
I'm sure
it's gone over my head.
So I was a mad Fitzroy fan. Bernie Quinlan, Mickey Conlon were my idols growing up, and then I went from that to North Melbourne within a space of a year. Ross Glendinning was my favourite footballer, and I was still young. I was only 7, and my dad showed me the back page of the news back then, and he said, "Oh, guess who won the Brownlow medal?" I said, "Oh, don't know." It's like Ross Glendinning. I used to run around with number 4 in North Melbourne, jumper on my back, and then from there it just swapped to Hawthorn. My favourite player was Dermot Brereton. It was the yellow boots, it was the golden locks, and totally different from the look that I've got. And I was a Hawthorn supporter up until 93. Then I went to Essendon.
So is this just whoever's winning, mate, or no loyalty, or what's the deal?
I think it's a bit of both. And then for me, I got drafted at the end of 93 to the Adelaide Crows, and I had to basically kiss my Essendon jumper goodbye and put that in the bottom drawer, and I was with the Crows for a year. But ever since then, I've never had a side as such. I'd like to watch good football and good footballers play. And for me, I I always used to just like to watch our own mob play. The brothers, obviously knew a few guys that played at that top level. So whether it was Port Adelaide, Essendon, North Melbourne, it was, I wouldn't go for a side as such. I'd go for the player and make sure that, if they played a good game, it's like, okay, no worries. But I don't know what it is. I can't tell you. And NRL, I've gone from North Queensland Cowboys to Brisbane Broncos. To
we're not talking about NRL, mate. This is a South Australian show. And you're an avid coach as well. I know coaching means a fair bit to you. How does that help with you connecting with the community in a different way? I
love the challenge of pushing the boys to actually get better themselves, and I'll walk away happy knowing that I've developed you not only as a person but as a player as well. So, and it's just about having those one-on-one chats to them, and I keep telling them it's an open book. Come and chat to me. I like to be able to engage and talk to people. Some people probably find me intimidating at times, but I'm just more of a soft teddy bear.
Well, you're the right man for the job, mate.
Thanks.
Thanks for chatting.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
If you want to learn more about SAMRI and the researchers working to build a brighter, healthier future for you and your family, head to samri.org.au.